Have you ever been driving and off on the side of the road, there's something that catches your attention? And when you adjust your gaze back to the road, you realize that your car was drifting off in the direction of the thing that you were looking at. That actually happened to me today. It really did. So my son is learning about trucks. So anytime I see a truck on the road
Bulldozer.
or a bulldozer, a pickup truck, any of those things, I will point it out to him so that he can see it. And then he just gets super excited about it. So that is exactly what happened to me today. Last week, when we spoke about mindset, we touched on the topic of gates and how you need to pay attention or pay the price. And today, we're going to talk about the attitude of focus and how everything follows the direction of your focus.
Before we get into the nitty gritty of focus, you better keep that in there.
Keep that.
Oh, before we get into the nitty gritty of the attitude of focus, let's quickly talk about the difference between focus and obsession. Now, there is a thin line, but it is an important line between the two. And that line is this: control. Focus, you should be able to turn on and off like a light switch. Obsession is when you no longer have that control. And we need to be very aware of anything that we don't have control over, because obsession is the first step. It is the gateway, the open door to possession.
Glad that you define the two, because it could be really easy to intertwine those two or have some sort of mix of the two. And we want to make sure that your focus is 100% pure focus, not focus with a little bit of obsession or obsession with a little bit of focus. We want to make sure that your focus is exactly what it needs to be without any kind of obsession, because obsession, like Derek shared, is lack of control. The attitude of focus could either take you to higher heights or can completely take you off course. Think of it this way. If you have a 99-cent bottle spray and you put water in it and you spray a brick, nothing will happen to that brick except for it getting wet. If you take that same water and you put it in a water jet cutter, you now have the ability to cut through that same exact brick. The only difference between those two was the focus of the water. And this is the same exact thing that could happen with your focus. If you dilute its potential, you will get nothing but a mist. If you concentrate it, you can cut through your purpose with incredible precision.
So let's talk about the 3 traits of a focused attitude. Number 1, a focused attitude is prepared for distractions. When I first started going to church, I realized pretty quickly that there were multiple services going on at the same time, depending on where I sat. It's a totally different service if you sit front row versus midway back versus all the way in the back of the sanctuary where you have crying babies, you have people chatting, you have people on their phones, checking the football game. Now, I was there for one reason. I was there to receive from the man or woman of God preaching from the pulpit. I wasn't there to hear what the person next to me had to say about what the preacher was saying. I was there to hear the preacher. Now, what I couldn't control was my seat on a weekly basis. So I made up my mind to be prepared for those distractions and to make sure that whatever was going on, whether it was a crying baby or someone trying to talk to me or someone checking their phone, that nothing was going to pull my attention away from the preacher. I don't know if you remember this when we first met. I even was intentional about how focused my posture was. My back would not touch the back of the seat. I would plant my feet firmly. I would sit up straight with my arms rested on my legs, and I would stare at the pulpit in full receptive mode. That was the total intent of my focus while I was at that service. And I was unmoved by anything going on around me. Do you remember that?
I do. It
was a little intense.
It was.
Now I'm at the point where I've been practicing that so long that I can relax, I can sit back, but still have nothing break my focus.
And I think with focus, there comes a training process where you do have to train your mind. You have to train your attitude to get into that position of focus. So for a while, you used to sit like that because you were training yourself to focus in the midst of distractions. And for somebody who's not used to focusing, there needs to be practice.
Yeah. I mean, for anyone who's ever ran before or developed the habit of running, you know that the first time that you run, if it's been a while, everything feels so chaotic. You're out of breath, your legs hurt, you don't know what to do with your arms, you keep catching your shoulders going high, you just feel off. And it takes time and practice and ritual, doing it over and over again, to be able to get to the point where you can breathe 3 steps in, 3 steps out, or whatever your pacing is. You can keep your shoulders relaxed without having to think about it. But that is the result of having focused on something for a period of time. Number 2, a focused attitude has counted the cost. There are 2 major enemies to focus, and they both come from other people. Number 1 is other people's ideas of a balanced life for you. Have you ever really pressed into something that was important to you and you started devoting a lot of time and energy, money into those things? Well, guess what? We all only have 24 hours a day. So if you're putting more of yourself into that thing, it's taking away from other things. We are constantly being fed other people's ideas of what a balanced life looks for you. You know, you need to homeschool your kids, but you need to make your own sourdough. But you need to build a business, and you need to become a preacher, and you need to share the gospel more, and you need to do all of these things. But the reality is, you have a purpose, and that purpose requires focus on that purpose. So you know what? Maybe you don't need to make your own sourdough. Maybe you don't even need to do your own laundry. Maybe you are meant to build a business. And in order to do that, you need to drop your clothes off at the laundromat so you can get that time back to build what you've been called to build. That's the first enemy to focus. The second enemy is criticism. Now, this criticism usually comes from those who are closest to us, that when we begin to focus, notice a change in how we are towards them. But you have to understand something, that if you're going to choose to elevate your life, if you're going to choose to break through to new levels, and you're going to choose to level up, that is a decision to stop being mediocre, to no longer be average, and to be excellent, as we spoke about yesterday. And if you're choosing to be excellent, that is going to put a spotlight on everyone around you's mediocrity, and they're not going to like it. So their response is going to be criticism.
Not everybody's meant to follow you into the next chapter. And you have to be okay with that. Before that spotlight gets shined on the mediocrity of the people around you, make sure that you've already made the decision to be okay if they don't want to come with you.
And lastly, number 3, a focused attitude is sold out. A focused attitude cannot be bought, cannot be persuaded, and has no plan Bs. A focused attitude says, this is where I'm going. I've counted the cost. I've prepared for distractions, and nothing is going to stop me, because this is what I'm meant to do with my life. So when you're ready to get a focused attitude, buckle up, because your whole life's about to change. God bless.
Happy fasting.